Every brand, as a mantra, must meet its consumers where they are, whether you like it or not. And if you do not, someone else, namely your competitor, will.
This is the Snarketing Podcast, for marketers, by marketers, talking to marketers with just a touch of snark. Now, here are your hosts, Valerie Vespa and Matt Wurst.
Welcome back to the Snarketing Podcast. My name is Matt Wurst.
Valerie Vespa.
And we are your co-hosts in episode 10, which means we've now hit double digits. No matter what happens from here, Valerie, they can never take that away from us.
I love it. And we're so good. We've had this cadence of every 2 weeks. I mean, I'm impressed with us.
Marketing is important in terms of volume and frequency. So our frequency is consistent. Our volume is
growing.
Now all we have to do is focus on quality. Is that something that you and I can agree that we can prioritize?
That's kind of my mantra for life. We always can get better.
I think this is a path for us to becoming internationally famous and world renowned, where we become influencers and culture creators. That should be our goal.
I mean, I feel like you kind of already are.
I would love for you to define the metrics that you have used to create that impression in your own mind, because I disagree with you. But culture is an interesting term. Brands certainly use that term all the time. Agencies use that term with their brands. Should we find something new to talk about? Do brands need to stop talking about culture?
I think you're bringing up a really great question. And I don't know if the word culture, just to me in today's age, seems confusing to me, because what entirely is that? When I think about culture, I think about like internally in my office, like creating a positive environment. Whereas I think the word that sort of is synonymous with the old version of culture is community. I feel like the community word has been used way more often now.
I think you're right. The terminology gets lost, but becomes a comfortable panacea or a catch-all for lots of different things. And what was once a powerful beacon guiding brands towards authenticity and connection and resonance with their audiences has now in many cases just become a buzzword. But I think by moving beyond superficial use of terms or aesthetics and embracing authenticity, which may be another buzzword that we have to lose at some point, but I'm still going to lean into it for as long as I can. I think that's what brands are going to need to do to deepen connections, to foster trust, to genuinely resonate with their audiences. So if we can refocus on the true essence of what culture meant and what that purpose is, then I don't know that the term matters as much as the end result, or as an old mentor of mine used to say, the outcome is more important than the output.
Interesting.
And look, there are also new technologies. There are new places where consumers are engaging that are redefining culture. The immersive worlds of Roblox and Fortnite are shaping generations. They are creating new communities.
I think that's a perfect example of this.
Yeah,
yes.
And I'm excited to learn more about it. I have not spent as much time in these places as, say, my children have, and that it's impossible for me to ever catch up to them because they are spending double-digit hours per day in these worlds.
Completely. I agree.
But it's increasingly aging up. They are diverse. They are flexible. They offer brands creative canvases to engage. And our guest today is a leader in that innovation and making these
an expert
possible. Yeah. So I'm excited to learn from him. He is someone I've known for a short period of time, but every time I hear him speak, I just kind of want to stare googly-eyed at him, because he is shaping culture as we know it.
he has a passion and a volition around these efforts that makes him pretty unstoppable.
Let's dig into the metaverse and all things virtual with our friend, Justin Hochberg. He's a Californian, but we won't hold that against him. Let's jump in and talk with the CEO and founder of Virtual Brand Group. Hello, Justin, and over to you, Val and Matt.
Justin, great to see you. Great to talk with you. Welcome to the Snarketing Podcast.
Thanks, buddy. Matt, pleasure to be here. I feel like I have to bring my A game sort of New York needle you vibe to live up to the title of your podcast. I'm very nervous.
Well, you and I have known each other for a little bit of time, and I'm not really concerned about you bringing your A game because I've never seen you participate with anything less. But I have to ask you a question before we jump too deep into the weeds here, because I know you as...
I just have to interrupt. As long as I get to ask one back.
That is what we expect. There are no hosts. There are no guests. We're all just family.
Okay, well, that's not a good analogy if you're from my neck of the woods. So get on with it. What's your question?
Are we in a metaverse right now talking in this virtual space?
No, we are not in a virtual space right now. I think all we're doing is talking on a flat screen that's two-dimensional. That's one-dimensional actually, because it's just a flat pancake of a Zoom.
Okay, so there needs to be a third dimension for your definition and criteria of metaverse to be met.
No.
Okay, so how do you define and where and how do you articulate this concept in a way that can help our listeners who might be new to this world know what you do, know where they should be thinking and focusing, and why to talk with you in the future?
Thank you for teeing up the promotional moment that I'm about to launch into. So, in short, let me just frame it like this. I run a company called the Virtual Brand Group, and we have a simple idea that there are brands out there throughout the world in every sector, no matter what it is, from fashion to entertainment to sports, CPG, etc. No matter if you have a consumer and your consumer buys something, you currently want to reach that consumer. Today, you might choose to do it via TV or with Valerie at Outfront Media, or social media or digital media or text messaging, whatever it is. You are reaching through every channel you possibly can to find consumers at the best ROI. We work with brands to help them figure out how to reach consumers through these new channels, which is based upon some of which are virtual worlds like Roblox or Fortnite, some of which are just underlying technologies that loop together current marketing efforts, like being able to track someone who A, buys something on Amazon with your product, B, goes to the store to buy something of your product, and C, posts about it on Twitter. And we've worked with Mattel, Barbie, Forever 21, the retailer, The Voice TV show, which airs in 180 countries, making it the most distributed TV show ever in the history of the world, and in more countries than Nike and Disney. We work with beauty brands, but our specialty is working at the epicenter of brands that drive the cultural zeitgeist. So that's typically sports, entertainment, and fashion. And we have delivered some of the best results in this nascent business for brands, from marketing, from revenue, and for transformation of their existing business operations.
Okay, so that's very helpful. And I want to dig into some of those examples. I want to dig a little bit more into the nitty gritty and details of how you do that. Because it's really innovative. It's really fascinating. And I think, and you tell me if I'm wrong, it's actually impactful. But before we do that, you and I both are UPenn alumni who ended up on different coasts, different paths, but both kind of rooted in content, as I said, and converged again in these last few years. Your track was more entertainment centric. You've worked with major studios, production companies with some incredible IP. I want to know, as you were growing up and as you were roaming West Philadelphia, did you foresee a career in Hollywood?
Not at all, Matt. In college, I was a history and language major. But I will tell you, I have always been interested in storytelling. And that is largely due to the fact that at my dinner table, my father was a storyteller from a different generation. And that was his whole thing. And I can remember probably the greatest business lessons I ever learned was from that dinner table, of which I have passed them on to my kids, much to their dismay. And over the course of sort of between what you reference as my Penn undergraduate and where I am today, I have largely lived in the same intersection, which is three things converging: consumer-facing technologies, content, and brands. I have done that from multiple perspectives, whether it was at Microsoft, working on interactive TV with the founders, or the first streaming media products that broke the record industry and started enabling the streaming platforms we now all use, to being a producer on the original Apprentice many years ago. That is, pause here for a second. Valerie is nodding. I just want to say that is a creative statement, not a political statement. So we'll just keep moving. Or to working with brands in Web3 or the metaverse or whatever you want to call it. So that intersection has sort of, in retrospect, defined all the things that I'm most attracted to, because they create a really interesting problem to solve and typically really transformative opportunities.
And can you just continue to elaborate on that part there? Like, what sort of opportunities did you see from those experiences that have led to you, like, where you are now?
So I'll just start with the framework that I observed, how I got into sort of the Web3 or Roblox and all that thing. So during the pandemic, prior to the pandemic, we were a family, and if you have kids, this will really hit you hard. We did not allow our kids to watch any screens during the week. Any screens, right? And my kids were 9 and 12 when the pandemic hit, which, by the way, that is really hard.
I applaud you.
That's hard. So when the pandemic hit and the kids were then on Zoom for like 8 hours and wanted to play video games online for like 3 hours, my wife and I were like, no way. We're like, that's 11 hours. Now, of course, Zoom School and Fortnite are not the same thing, but to me, it was screens. No matter what we said, they wouldn't stop. So in the vein of, if you can't beat them, join them, I went on and started playing Roblox and Fortnite. Now, I knew that these were real things and the kids liked them, because not only did I observe my kids always wanting to play, but I saw my credit card bills going up and up and up as they all wanted to spend money on those platforms for whatever they were spending money on. And quickly, what I observed were three things, which is fundamental to understanding why everybody should recognize that this is just inevitable. And within 3 years, if you listen to this now and put a pin in your calendar, you'll say, oh, he was right. This is all happening. The inevitability was this. One is, there are already hundreds of millions of people who are engaged in these experiences on a daily basis. And right now, the count of people is about 600 million people who spend money every month in a virtual or metaverse related way. That's commerce, 600 million. Two, on these platforms, in particular, when I started this a couple of years ago, but even still now, there were ways to have an economy. You could buy, but you could also sell. You could create and sell. So that's very different than in a lot of different places. On Snapchat, look how long it took TikTok and YouTube or whatever to get to commerce. And even if it is commerce, it's really just click and buy commerce. It's not create, there's a very, very narrow definition. It's very almost physical in its nature. These are really more fungible experiences. So if one was scale, second point was commerce and a thriving mechanism for commerce like we have in the real world. And the third thing, which wasn't there, which is a good thing, was brands. And when I saw there were 200 million kids playing Roblox for tens of hours a week that could spend money, but there was none of their favorite brands like you'd see at the mall, I was like, well, this is inevitable, because it is inevitable. Just like there probably weren't many brands advertising on Facebook when they started. In fact, nobody even thought that was a thing. And so here we are today with sort of the same thing, except for this same thing is so vastly ahead of where those things were when it started. And so that is what I've always done. And that's the sort of trifecta of opportunity that I've always pursued.
I love this. I hope this is part of your pitch, because it clarifies things on such a level, and education must be a huge challenge for you in terms of, getting new brands to get on board with you, but also a huge opportunity. So you touched upon it, but how do you prove out the beyond what you just said? What are some of the data points, facts? What are the things that you share with your clients to really make them like have this momentous aha, I need to be here in this space kind of?
So let me distill it down to the three most powerful things that I can say to you right now, which is one, every brand as a mantra must meet its consumers where they are, whether you like it or not. And if you do not, someone else, namely your competitor, will, by definition. Today, the economy for attention has never been more fierce. In particular, if you're courting core consumers like youth culture. Their attention is short, there's more things to do than ever, and they're less aggregated than ever before. So if you believe those two problems, and in particularly right now, that there is brand dollars, marketing dollars are more scarce and everyone wants a better ROI now more than ever, and tomorrow more than today, and the next day more than that, then you have to be looking for the best way at the best price to reach your consumer. Forever 21 is a brand that we worked with. It had come out of bankruptcy about 3 years ago. It's owned by a fantastic company called the Authentic Brands Group. They own about 50 different brands from Forever to the Elvis Estate, Reebok, etc. And I went to them and said, we should put you on Roblox. This is a growing marketplace, and we think we can create a transformation and innovation story for your brand and reach new consumers because they're all about trend fashion for the young 20 crowd, teenagers, etc. We launched them on Roblox as the third brand ever on that platform in 2021. Over the course of 12 months, we did a variety of different activations on there, new collections, new designs, etc. After 12 months, almost to the day, a list came out and said, here are the top 10 brands for 2022 in the metaverse. Sorry, 2023. Top 10 brands for the metaverse in 2023. On that list was Forever 21 at 12 months in, which was great because there's a lot of people in there. There's Balenciaga, there's Nike, there's Adidas. These are major companies that are very marketing forward. They're elite luxury brands or elite marketing entities that just are massively successful on a global basis. So to be listed there was great. But here's what was most important. The other 9 were Prada, Gucci, Balenciaga, Polo, Nike, Adidas, etc. Now, think about that. If we had collectively several $billion and we took a brand like Forever 21 and said our goal is over a course of multiple years to transform it into a brand like Balenciaga or Nike, hyper luxury mass marketing machine, I don't believe that the best person would achieve that goal. It's just simply too hard to defy gravity in the physical world. And that's not about Forever 21. That's a massive reposition for any brand. It doesn't matter what the brand is. The second thing I would say is we worked with Barbie this summer. Barbie was probably one of the biggest cultural moments of the year. It continues to resonate right now. Obviously, the movie, various hundreds of different people. Virtual Brand Group.
Yep, we've heard of it. We knew who she is. She's big.
Obviously, so the Virtual Brand Group was the exclusive virtual fashion designer and distributor for Barbie this summer. And we created an innovation story around that. And we created a distribution and marketing platform for them. We took AI and designed a line of clothing that was both inspired by a collab that they had with Forever 21. So it was based on partially physical items that were in the store. So you could buy the physical and you could buy the virtual together. You could sort of own both. But Mattel was really kind to us and let us innovate and update styles, mixing and matching things that had never been done before. Okay. So that was a piece of it. The part that I think most of your brands are going to be most interested in is that we then created a distribution plan within Roblox as one plan. I'll just give you that, where we created what you would think of in the real world as a pop-up store. You go to Macy's and you see like a little area within there that's designed to look like the brand, Hugo Boss or Polo or whatever, and it feels different. We created this interactive pop-up store that looks like this Barbie beach house with butterflies flying and mannequins all around with virtual fashion in it. We placed them through partners in several hundred different games across Roblox. Over the course of 8 weeks, we delivered 305 million engagements in this pop-up experience. Of that, a very high percentage of people tried on the clothing, and of that, a percentage of people bought the clothing. We did for them, as part of our marketing strategy, as a trial, it's the first time we ever did this. We launched it with Barbie because we knew we'd get traction. We created this marketing platform that could be used for any brand across a network of games that was very successful. The third thing that we're working on right now, which is current, which is exciting, is the Voice TV show. If you think about a TV show, it's a very disaggregated distribution model, right? You've got the rights holder, in this case, ITV Studios in the UK. You've got different local broadcasters, NBC in the US, in Germany, it would be a different person, in France, it'd be different. And then you've got the audience, and none of which is really connected. So, the rights holder does not know who the audience is, the network does not know who the audience is, et cetera. And the markets are all separate. And we are building up an entire ecosystem of 3 pillars: virtual experiences, Web3 enabled rewards programs that connect people, and new products that this brand would not typically contemplate in the physical world. But because it's virtual, we can build it. And in that space, the first thing to roll out is actually a virtual fashion line that we did on a platform called Decentraland, and that we will roll out on multiple other platforms. And so those 3 things are 3 great examples of how you as a brand can use this medium.
And I want to get a little bit into Roblox, because we are experiencing, and not only experiencing, we are engaging in and interacting in, words that have lost some meaning, but we are literally participating in these ecosystems. It started as a platform that was geared towards our kids, but it is aging up. As you are working with major brands, with some of the biggest and best IP, are these geared towards younger audiences? Are they geared towards older audiences, or anyone and everyone to whom a brand might be relevant?
So Matt, that's a great question, because I think there's just not a full understanding on what that is. Think about what it was like, I don't know, when we were kids, and MTV came out, right? Who was watching MTV? Young people, right?
Sure.
I was probably I started probably 7. When did it come out?
Watching
watching
Madonna videos with my older sister, who was probably a teenager. It's a material world. Yeah.
If you think about typical new products, especially in the innovation space, they tend to start with a more flexible mindset group of people, and that's youth culture, who has time and they're not burdened by biases over what they've done in a lifetime. So, who created the internet, who used the internet early, who used social media early, who probably watched TV early, who probably, throughout history, it's no story there. So today, the majority of people who started playing in these virtual spaces or using these virtual spaces, obviously were younger people, right? Disposable time, et cetera. However, this is quickly aged up for a variety of things. Now, I also want to say that there's a difference between talking about like a virtual world like Roblox or Fortnite, which get a lot of press, as publicly, available information, and then a whole bunch of other metaverse or Web3 related technologies, which have nothing to do with like avatars and clothing and video games, that are just technologies, just like you use Amazon, whatever's on AWS to, run a web service or some code to run your e-commerce site, right? So there's 2 very distinct spaces here. But since you're talking about gaming, I'll give you some stats. Today, very quickly, literally over the last 3 years, 40% of the Roblox player count is 17 and above. So if you take the daily average count of 60 million, you're talking about 24 million people 17 or above. Fortnite skews even older. 62% are 18 to 24. If you are someone interested in reaching that market, you have to be there.
And I feel like that alone, that fact, I feel like people think it's a bunch of 10-year-olds. It's like that in of itself is like an education for so many brand marketers, I would assume. So what are your thoughts on, everyone was talking about Web3, metaverse, now AI has been, ad nauseum spoken about. for a good reason. I think it's all very exciting. There's a ton of hype, and sometimes that creates a lot of negativity. Like, do you feel like that's still the case when you're talking to brands? Do you think brands are still super leaning into this? Like, what are objections, et cetera, et cetera? Like, how are you feeling about doing this? Like, how are people receiving what you're talking about in this environment?
So it's a great question. And I think what you're talking about is how receptive are partners that in the world, brands, et cetera, to exploring this space. And look, Valerie,
Yeah.
I think you're on the front line with dealing with clients. I think by definition, typically, people like to go with what they already know. So no matter what we're talking about, that's hard to change behavior. I think what happened was this became such a rocket ship in 2021 and 2022 when we were locked down, when a lot of people didn't have much to do. They had run through their Netflix queue. It was very focused on that. So it went through what they call the hype cycle. And then it went past the hype cycle, which is typical of any new thing. I would just say for context, I don't know how many people remember, but I worked in Silicon Valley in the late 90s for Microsoft, in early 2000s, and in Redmond. And that was the first Internet 1.0 boom, late 90s. In March of 2001, there was an internet stock crash. And literally, you read research reports, go look up the research reports from there. They will say, this internet thing, it's not a thing. We thought it was a thing. It's not going to be real. So I think that is, I'm not so worried about whether there's a cycle or not. I get that AI is fantastic and it can be transformative. That's neither here nor there. And I guess in a world where you can only focus on one shiny object, that might be a problem. But I would say this, the smartest people I know are looking at this holistically and trying to figure out how do they adapt their business. They're not saying we're AI, right? They're not saying we're metaverse. They're like, look, we have a business to run. We need to do the things we need to do. How do we constantly do them better? And
Completely.
those are the brands that are winning.
Please pardon this brief pause as I read some words from our sponsor. The Snarketing Podcast is brought to you in part by The Lion King on Broadway. Now is the perfect time to experience the majesty of The Lion King. Broadway's awe-inspiring phenomenon is going strong. Great seats available, and you can buy tickets online at thelionking.com. We'll see you at the Minskoff Theater.
Like, I know one major brand that, like, some of the people that were focused on CRM are now focused on a lot of what you're talking about, loyalty programs. Like, how do you connect? How do you have these conversations? Yeah, so I totally agree with you. I think anyone who is turned off by the word metaverse or Web3 is just completely short-sighted and not well-read. So anyway.
I don't think, look, I would say that everybody, again, it's tough to change behavior patterns, and this is a new thing. And so I think that, you just have to explain. I think if you just let the data lead and, people can understand that. It doesn't really matter. In fact, there's a way of telling the story that I often do in meetings with clients. And I said, look, I'm just going to tell you some data. Tell me if that sounds attractive. I'm not going to tell you what it is. And I say something like, there's 600 million people doing this. The average person who does it spends 78 hours a month. Just for context, the average person on TikTok is 45 hours. The average person on YouTube is 20 some odd hours. So what I'm talking about is more than those two combined. And that anybody can do it from anywhere just using your iPhone, which means that there's approximately 7 billion people on the planet that have immediate access. So there's no barrier to entry. So that's your total addressable market. If I told you that, and I said, whatever you're doing, the way you're doing it, we can do it at a third of the cost and up to 10 times more engagement, would that be attractive? And if their answer is yes, then that always opens the door. And then I explain what we're talking about. That's how I lead.
So logistically, as marketers in this engagement ecosystem that is constantly evolving, there are and have been these established vertical category parts of the industry. There are agencies, there are media platforms, there are creatives. Your company, Virtual Brand Group, is not even 2 years old yet you've established this very prominent and leading position in and around immersive, metaverse, space building, virtual spatial worlds and games and all of that great stuff. But if I'm a brand and I'm a CMO or I'm a marketer listening to this, when do I go to you? When do I go to my agency? Like, what do you do specifically to help me reach those 600 million people?
So you can do one of two things. Wherever it gets to me is fine with me, which is to say that, as I mentioned in those examples of Forever 21, Mattel, The Voice, NBC, we work directly with these brands, right? We serve a very specific function for a very specific way of engaging. So we can do all of that. Now, we recognize that most large brands have multiple agencies. And so in that model, we partner with agencies and we provide an add-on effect. So like, let's look at Valerie, who's going to give me a ton of business. You have a very robust sales team on a national basis, and you do this all the time. You don't do exactly what I do. So if there's a way to be complementary to each other, which can increase the average spend per client and give them give your sales teams a new product to sell, which is always valuable, that's great. Same with, my hope is working with NBC, which we are now. My hope is over time, when they become familiar with the results that we deliver and all those ad sales teams around the world at the local territories for the Voice networks, our belief is, and we're progressing towards a moment where they look at this and go, great, we can sell this, because who doesn't want something new to sell in a hyper competitive market? So the answer to your question is, Matt, however we get there, which is to say we are actively out there for our own businesses, and we actively look for partners who feel like we can complement them with our features and functionality and what we do.
And the more work, creative content experiences that people can see and experience, we thought NFTs were going to be marketing as a profit center. But I think this is really where marketing as both a cost and profit center is going to hit more mainstream adoption. So congratulations, good luck, exciting.
Dream brand to work with and collaborate on.
Take my shot here. Okay, well, I'm going to reverse engineer this. Who do you know who has been on the program and is likely to listen to this? So give me the list of people so I can narrow that down to the people.
I don't know if you know this, Justin. We are the number 57th ranked marketing-based podcast in Canada. So clearly the Canadians love us. I don't know that we've had a Canadian guest on, but yet we're resonating. So maybe the Great White North is your tundra of opportunity.
Here's a great example of another activation. We had nothing to do with this, but I really have to give a shout out. Last Halloween, Chipotle did they do a thing for Halloween called the Boo Rito, as in spooky Boo, and they built a pop-up shop, much like our Barbie pop-up shop, but on Roblox. And you got to go in there and make a burrito, and then you got a coupon code, and if you took that to Chipotle, they saw exactly what you already ordered, and they then could give you a discount. I believe it drove about 6 million transactions. So there's a phenomenal example of connecting the virtual with the physical world, just like you connect Facebook or TikTok or whatever, or digital coupon. So on the other, I think the answer I would give you is, yes, we love things in the cultural zeitgeist. So fashion, entertainment, sports, those are things that move the needle. But ultimately, the thing that's probably the most interesting for me is any brand with a really devoted consumer base, people that really follow it. And that's why I say fashion, entertainment, and sports, but there are a lot of outliers. There's a great brand like the Hot Ones, the Hot Ones sauce and stuff. It's not as massive as, say, the Voice following or Nike, but like they're really devoted to that product base. Valerie, you're going to tell me who your clients are after this, and then that's going to become my new people I want. How's that for an answer?
So before we jump to our lightning round question, I am with you. I am a believer. I'm all in. I've been in this space also for a few years, and I'm coming back in a pretty fun way. As an advocate for metaverse as a primary marketing activation pillar and what I think will become mainstream in the next year, 5 years, 10 years, etc., and knowing you were first, are you, like me, an I told you so kind of guy, or will you be humble about being so right?
Um, I think I would be. I think my goal is that nobody remembers that. It doesn't matter. And I will say this. I've been kind of doing this when I was younger. I went and lived in Prague when it separated from the Czech Republic. Czech Republic separated from Slovakia, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, before there was the internet craze of the 90s, that you'd see the cover of Time magazine and people like me selling bagels in Budapest. Ever since then, whether it's there or Microsoft or early in reality TV, I have typically been in the sort of at the moment where things were new. And it has been very hard oftentimes to explain things. And once I sat with top Hollywood executives, including Peter Chernin, who for a long time ran Fox, for Rupert Murdoch, and all the top agencies, and from Microsoft described in early 2000s what it would be like, that there was a time when you would be able to watch movies or TV on a device. At that time, there wasn't a wireless device. You could just sync it from your laptop and you would walk around with it. And every single one of them said there was no way that would ever happen. And in fact, that was one of many times that was said. Now, my retort was, that's exactly what they said about TV when it came out. It was too small. No one's going to watch it. And I said, always remember, convenience beats almost everything. As they say in the camera business, and then why there's no Kodak. What is the best camera to have? The one you have with you when you want to take a picture, right? Right? And so what do you have on you all the time right now? A phone. Why would you ever need anything more, right? That's why there's no Kodak. So the answer to you, Matt, is look, I have done this many times and I am not always right. And I'm certainly not always right with the timing because that's the thing you don't know. And sometimes I would say being early is the same as being wrong in many ways. So what I just hope is that we continue to get to do amazing work for interesting brands who want to let us help them innovate in ways that just haven't been able to be done before. It's a new world. And if they're excited, that's all I care about.
Well, I think that's an incredibly powerful question and answer to end on, because what I took away is you are an I told you so kind of guy when it comes to Eastern Bloc countries separating out. You were there, you made it happen. What we're going to do now is jump to and conclude with our lightning round, gone in 60 seconds, series of questions. No guest has ever been able to actually successfully answer all 6 questions in 60 seconds, typically because I'm asking them and I take way too long to ask them. We'll go back to the beginning of this conversation where we were talking about our common Philadelphia roots. What is your favorite place to get a cheesesteak in Philadelphia?
Abner's.
Second question. Every time you and I have a conversation, you're sitting somewhere in or around LA in your car in traffic. What is the worst highway and which road will you try and avoid at all costs if you have to get somewhere?
The worst traffic spot is trying to do a drive-in Starbucks.
Anywhere in LA?
Oh, it's the worst.
Just in general?
In LA. I don't know. I can't tell you about Tennessee. But if you want the most traffic, it's worse in Starbucks drive-thrus than it is on the 405. That is the worst traffic in LA.
We'll make a note of that for the Waze people.
Yeah, they need to figure out how to circumvent the Starbucks line. That's for sure.
Okay. Question number 3. You are a consummate innovator, entrepreneur, and visionary. At what age do you see yourself retiring?
Next life.
If there is a spider in your house, do you kill it or capture it and set it free?
Okay.
Ooh, okay. Third option, and kind of a creepy one. How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
I have never had coffee in my life. Name anybody else you've ever met who can say that. That is above the age of 8.
I was with you until I had my first kid. I'd never sipped any caffeine until those nights. But good for you for keeping it going. And the last question before we let you go: what is your favorite virtual item or good that you own?
So one of the first items we created for Forever 21 was a big debate about whether we should replicate the real items in the store or whether we had leeway to create special items that would be catered towards what we thought the marketplace would do. So while I was there, after some discussion, we said, look, let's just make it easy. 50 those, see which sells best. One of those items was a black cap, and it said the word forever. And we designed that. That cap became Forever 21's number one seller and one of the hottest selling items on Roblox. That cap became so well sold that Roblox decided, not Roblox, but Forever 21 decided for their 1 year anniversary to make that cap and sell it in stores, and made a whole collection of sweatshirts, t-shirts, etc. So that's probably my favorite thing because it was one of the first items we designed. It's also the first item that ever was R&D developed in virtual spaces that became a whole physical collection. So, and by the way, side note, I'm just going to show you.
Note to listeners, Justin has moved off camera and is probably going to get something
and
that he is
here
going
it
to
is.
show us now. Oh,
there it is. The Forever cap, built in Roblox, distributed and sold in Forever 21, sold out, massive seller, total great thing. And I wear this all winter long now.
That is an adorable cap. I actually had envisioned it differently, and I like that better. So congratulations. Wow.
Justin, no, thank you. And you know who's not a sellout? It is you. You were everything that we thought you would be as a guest today. You brought energy, you brought some snark, but you brought some real wisdom and expertise that I think our listener, or maybe listeners at this point, will find really, really relevant and valuable.
Matt, I am so sold on Justin. I love this guy, and I love your business, and I'm like so excited for you. I wish you a ton of luck.
Matt, I know you were going to let me say this, so I'll beat you to the punch. Where can they find you, Justin, if they want to get in touch? But you know where it'd be great? You can obviously email me at virtualbrandgroup.com. There's a link right there, or LinkedIn. I'm on it all the time. I'm always checking Matt's feed because he always has wisdom, drops knowledge like Alexander Hamilton. So either of those two are great.
He does.
Even if you just are curious or want to see some case studies, we have a deck that we can just shoot out to you. You can just swipe right on us and we'll just send it out to you so you can learn a little bit about what we're up to and how you can take advantage of it.
Thank you, Justin. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Matt.
Bye.
Thanks, Valerie. This was awesome.
Thanks for joining us, Justin. I'll admit that I'm hoping you've got a place in one of your virtual worlds for me. As an AI creation, it's the only place I really feel at home. And for everyone else, see you next time.